A middle-aged man, respected in the community, was found dead in his home. Evidence pointed to his wife, a young woman in her mid-30s, entangled in a web of affairs. She was involved with two other men, her ex-husband and her husband's younger brother. Each had a motive to kill, yet there was no proof until two detectives got involved. Motives beneath pretense and deceit were uncovered. The deceased was John Harrison, married to Emily in her mid-30s, with his brother David living with them. Emily's loud scream echoed in the quiet neighborhood, surprising everyone as it pierced the dead of night. Neighbors responded swiftly, finding Emily crying uncontrollably, her clothes stained with blood, clutching a framed picture of her husband. His body suggested his throat had been slit, blood gushing from the wound. Disarrayed furniture indicated a violent struggle. Officer Daniel, first on the scene, secured the area as Emily attempted to account for the events, claiming she found him dead upon returning, denying any knowledge. Her story was met with skepticism. Her demeanor suggested otherwise. Her narrative seemed rehearsed, every move premeditated, hinting she was concealing something. Detective Sarah Miller arrived to make observations. There was no sign of forced entry. John had been killed by someone familiar, an insider with access. Emily, caught off guard, was taken aside for a detailed account. As she recounted her story, she avoided eye contact, unnecessarily. Emily's accounts were inconsistent. She claimed to have gone shopping, returning to find him dead, which conflicted with her earlier statement. Detective Reynolds spoke to neighbors. Neighbors reported loud altercations earlier between John and an unidentified person. One thing was certain, John was not alone that night. Reynolds and Miller realized this was no ordinary case. They needed a keen eye to uncover any useful information about what occurred. They decided to delve deeper into the mystery. The next day, the investigation began. They would examine everyone associated with John in the days before his death. This included obtaining a detailed statement regarding his whereabouts. They found that on the day of the murder, he left his office at 5 p.m., earlier than usual. John Harrison appeared distracted as he left the office early, an unusual behavior for a man so devoted to his business. Meanwhile, Emily claimed to be at the supermarket, but no surveillance cameras or witnesses could confirm her story. Though Emily appeared cooperative, Detective Sarah Miller sensed an underlying unease, a tension that seemed to ripple through her demeanor. Her story remained consistent, yet Emily's frequent glances at her phone hinted at anticipation. Detective Miller took note, deciding to delve into Emily's phone records. As Miller pursued this lead, Detective Reynolds explored John's professional life, seeking business rivals or adversaries who might harbor motives for murder. Although several individuals surfaced, none possessed a motive strong enough for such a violent act. Instead, the detectives uncovered Emily's past, revealing a previous marriage. Emily's marriage to Michael Turner ended in divorce, marred by allegations of infidelity and financial disputes, contributing to their turbulent relationship. Although Michael was out of town, he occasionally returned to visit his daughter from another relationship. Detective Miller decided to visit Michael, searching for any irregularities. These irregularities could hint at a motive for murder. Michael, with his charming personality, resided in a well-appointed apartment on the town's outskirts. When confronted with the facts, he appeared genuinely shocked, expressing concern. He claimed Emily had called him upon discovering John's death, advising her to contact the police, yet he had also attempted to visit. Upon seeing the swarm of police officers, he hesitated to approach. Detective Miller, already suspicious, decided to place Michael under surveillance. In the midst of this, Detective Reynolds uncovered new information. David Harrison, John's younger brother, had recently been seen arguing with him. David, a striking figure with a troubled personality, had always lived under his brother's shadow, reliant on him financially. This dependency presented a potential motive. David was brought in for questioning, his nervousness palpable as his eyes darted around the room. He confessed to arguing with John days earlier, claiming it was over money and John's threat to cut him off. This led to inquiries about his whereabouts during the murder. David stated he was at a bar, yet no evidence or witnesses supported his claim. As the threads of the investigation began to intertwine, the detectives realized they were unraveling a complex and captivating case. With a veil of mystery surrounding them, John and Emily were celebrated for their seemingly perfect marriage, earning them adoration within the community. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks began to appear in their once ideal union. John, a self-made real estate mogul, was lauded for his negotiation prowess and strategic business mind. However, this success demanded a steep price. His relentless dedication strained his marriage, creating a chasm between him and Emily, who was accustomed to a life of privilege. Emily's prior marriage to Michael was tumultuous, beginning with romance and joy, only to spiral into chaos their relationship couldn't endure. Emily ended it, citing infidelity and financial mismanagement. In turn, Michael accused Emily of lavish spending, which ultimately drained his resources. Yet, both managed to shield their divorce from public attention. Michael left town, but maintained clandestine ties with Emily. John entered Emily's life swiftly, providing what she had lacked in her previous relationship: stability and reassurance. Their courtship was brief, leading to marriage within a year. However, she soon found herself yearning for the unpredictability that defined her past relationship. David Harrison, another pivotal figure, struggled with various addictions and a series of unsuccessful ventures. Regarded as the family's black sheep, he saw John as his savior, repeatedly rescuing him from dire situations, making David reliant and envious of his brother. Intriguingly, David and Emily shared a close bond, finding comfort in each other's presence and confiding in one another. Emily often shared her marital woes with David. Detectives unearthed this connection, suspecting deeper ties. Nonetheless, Miller and Reynolds uncovered startling information. John had transferred substantial assets into Emily's name, raising eyebrows. This suggested that John was preparing for something significant. Whatever it was, the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Emily was making dubious withdrawals, and her spending habits had escalated. To the detectives, it seemed Emily was plotting an escape. Michael Turner, though not directly linked to the case, still harbored feelings for Emily, which she reciprocated. They continued to rendezvous discreetly, their interactions suggesting their romance was far from over. John was the local hero, cherished by all, while Emily was his ideal partner, and David remained the problematic sibling. Michael, the ex, whose feelings weren't completely resolved, was about to be confronted by detectives. They would uncover the deceptive nature of each suspect's appearance as the investigation progressed. Each major suspect had either a hidden or overt motive that could lead to John's murder. Recently, John had taken a large sum of money to settle significant debts. Emily served as a catalyst in this situation. Despite financial success, she put John in debt through incessant spending. Her motives suggested John's death would resolve financial issues and clear the path for her relationship with David. On the other hand, Michael Turner, unable to move on from Emily, may have been driven by jealousy over John's new relationship. His interest in Emily was still intact. Coupled with financial instability, this could have led to a conspiracy between him and Emily. David, too, had his reasons, ranging from living in John's shadow to being dependent on him. With John threatening to cut him off, David faced being stranded, providing a motive for murder. However, detectives didn't dismiss the possibility of collaboration between Emily and David, who were amidst an affair and financial crisis. This made them major suspects in a death from which both stood to benefit. New information surfaced. A bartender contacted Detective Miller, claiming to have seen David and Emily, on the night of the murder, engaged in an exchange, suggesting an argument or a plan in progress. Both were brought in for interrogation. Emily confessed to meeting David, but only to discuss her failing marriage, denying any murder plan. David, unnecessarily defensive, heightened detectives' suspicions, despite insisting on innocence. Michael Turner's financial instability kept him a primary suspect, especially with frequent visits to Emily. Some sources suggested John was involved in fund diversion and money laundering, using his real estate business as an alibi. Detectives pursued this lead, which ended unfounded, likely a distraction from the original investigation. Then came another potential distraction, with some truth. It involved a former employee, reportedly fired by John for antagonistic reasons. This individual had threatened John, but investigations found these threats were empty words. Michael Turner's financial instability continued to make him a primary suspect, especially given his frequent visits to Emily. Some sources suggested John was involved in the diversion of funds, using his real estate business as an alibi. Detectives initially pursued this line of inquiry, but it led to a dead end, eventually discovered to be unfounded. This distraction seemed designed to divert attention from the investigation. Then came another distraction, carrying some truth. It involved a former employee of John, who had reportedly been fired for antagonistic reasons. This individual had a history of threatening John, but after investigation, these threats were determined to be empty words. The situation was caused by frustration, with no actions to back it up. The turning point came when Detective Reynolds discovered a hidden text message between Michael and Emily, suggesting reignited feelings. A line stood out: "We need to act now. John can't find out." This prompted detectives to label them as main suspects. They were confronted separately with increased intensity, putting immense pressure on Emily. This pressure led her to confess about the affair, but she maintained her claim of no involvement in the murder. Michael also insisted he had no part. Detectives examined phone records more closely, discovering missed details. There was a web of calls and messages between Emily, David, and Michael. This strongly suggested a collaborative effort, with Emily deeply involved in John's life. The murder plan could have been executed with her assistance. A mysterious bank transfer from Emily's account to an offshore account indicated her intentions to start fresh. Detectives felt they'd identified who they were looking for, intensifying Emily's interrogation. Unable to maintain composure, she began to confess, crying out she didn't mean for John's life to end, wanting a peaceful way out. Detective Miller, recognizing the crack in Emily's defenses, applied pressure for the full account. Emily broke down, confessing she and David planned to leave and start anew. Detectives sensed only David could provide a clearer account. Inviting him in, they forced a confession, initially denying involvement. When shown phone records and Emily's statement, he revealed the true account of the murder night. They had planned a confrontation, intending to inform John that his relationship with Emily was over. Emily, however, warned that John would never consent to her departure. Detectives soon uncovered a suspicious transfer of money to Michael's account, made just after the murder. Bringing the trio together, detectives subjected them to rigorous interrogation. Emily appeared scared, David was nervous, and Michael was defiant, suggesting their complicity in the crime. A tense atmosphere filled the room. Detective Miller pressed once more, demanding to know who killed John. Overwhelmed, Emily finally broke her silence. In a trembling voice, Emily began to recount the events of that fateful night. They intended to confront John, to end her relationship with him. Emily had warned them that John would never allow her to leave. At this point, detectives had discovered a large sum transferred to Michael's account. This revelation raised suspicions about his involvement. The trio was brought in for further questioning. During the interrogation, when evidence was presented, Emily appeared frightened, David was nervous, and Michael remained defiant, indicating their collective involvement. The tension in the room was palpable. Detective Miller asked once more, "Who killed John?" Emily, overwhelmed by emotion, decided to confess. Emily claimed it was meant to be a mere confrontation. However, tensions escalated between John and David, leading David to lose control and accidentally take John's life. David, already in a fragile state, claimed self-defense, asserting that John attacked him. David insisted he acted in self-defense. Michael, supposedly, was to help them disappear after the accidental death. Finally, detectives pieced together the truth. What began as a confrontation spiraled into violence. David reacted, resulting in John's death. Michael, stepping in, aided in covering up the crime. Their plan seemed foolproof, but faltered. After weeks of investigation and relentless interrogation, the truth emerged. The once peaceful community of Willow Creek now watched intently as the trial of the accused trio began. The prosecution argued that Emily sought escape through David from her toxic relationship with John, emotions igniting the murder. They pointed to financial turmoil. The life insurance policy, combined with the financial turmoil, provided a motive that was hard to ignore. Emily's attorney painted her as a victim, trapped in a troubled marriage. Desperate to escape, she found herself ensnared by her own poor choices. Meanwhile, David's attorney depicted him as a man oppressed by family discord, overshadowed by a domineering brother. When tensions erupted, David claimed self-defense after an altercation with his brother turned violent. This narrative formed the basis of his defense. The tragic sequence of events unfolded from these claims of self-defense. Michael's involvement appeared less direct, yet his attempt to stand by friends led to his downfall. The jury saw through his defense, marking him as an accomplice. Emotional testimonies revealed the tangled web of relationships. Emily, in tears, professed love for John, yet felt trapped. She never imagined it would escalate to such grave consequences. David, also tearful, recounted a life lived in John's shadow, compelled to act when attacked. In a moment of desperation, he felt he had no choice but to protect himself. Michael confessed to his role in the cover-up, a grave error in judgment, he admitted. He insisted his actions were misguided attempts to help a friend, taking full responsibility for his involvement. The prosecution argued the premeditated nature of the events, citing affairs and financial motives. The defense sought leniency, attributing actions to high-running emotions. Yet, the jury found David and Emily guilty of second-degree murder, with Michael as an accomplice. The deliberation concluded with guilty verdicts, a testament to the calculated nature of their actions. Despite the emotional turmoil, Emily faced a 20-year sentence, David received 15 years, and Michael was sentenced to 5 years. Justice had been served, yet the community remained haunted by the tragedy. The murder's impact lingered, a rare occurrence that left a lasting impression on those who witnessed its fallout. This tragic love triangle resulted in the loss of a husband, a tale of passion devolving into despair, leaving an indelible mark. The story of love turned sorrow serves as a stark reminder of betrayal's dangers and deceit's high cost. It illustrates how fragile trust can shatter, a narrative that remains etched in the collective memory. If you appreciate our content, please like and share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe and enable notifications to stay updated on our gripping episodes.